Okay, all right, here we are. We are in on the, what is that? The third week of the third quarter. Very appropriate. And yeah, we actually got 11 albums this week. There is at least one album in every single category. We're going to start out with electronic music. We're going to move to pop and indie. We're going to hit rap and hip hop after that. And we are going to end with rock and metal this time around. Honestly, pleasantly surprised with everything this week. There were, as opposed to the last few weeks, there weren't so many bad albums that I had to wade through. The 11 that I'm going to talk about this week are all really solid. I think a lot of them are going to be kind of in the discussion at the end of the year type of a situation. And yeah, let's just get into it. I did lay that out. So yeah, let's just get into electronic music here. There is one release, and it's actually going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit softer than the normal one, but we'll talk about that here in due time. So let me go ahead and put this up here. Also, I did figure out Yandex Music was on dark mode last week. I do not know why it switched to that, but thank God I got it back to the old classic looking style. It's so much better. Okay, so the first album we're going to talk about is Море. Give me a second here. The album is Русский, эмбиент, and the artist is море, кризисов, or A Sea of Crises. Now, we'll talk about the titles of everything here in just a second. The title of the album is Ruski, Russian Ambient. And I don't normally go in for ambient albums, but recently Is Home released that kind of wonderful electronic release that was borderline ambient. And now here we are with this one. The project, море, кризисов, is actually named for море, кризисом on the moon. So it's actually named after a feature on the surface of the moon. And it feels kind of appropriate because the music here is rather spacey and otherworldly. I've seen it described as the type of music that would be good for the soundtrack to a tense psychological thriller. It's the music you can kind of just like float along through in metaphysical space, if you will. And it does really feel soundtracky at times. And while this ain't no Atticus Ross, Trent Reznor type of soundtrack, for all of the serenity and vastness that you will hear in the music here, there is often a sense that there is something sinister lurking on the edges of what can be heard. To quote / paraphrase the artist with regards to what this release is about, an interpretation of the space imprinted into our cultural code. Here on one side is a village road, thick, humid air of a cemetery, dew under bare feet. From the other side, the childhood courtyard, the awkward movements of a city in the morning, and the piano in the house of culture on the next street over. So I'm just going to give it we're just going to give it a quick listen here. It's ambient, so you kind of know what you're getting into, but there's a little bit more to it. It's not just simply ambient. There's enough movement in here, and it does feel like Russia in its own way. Kind of jump ahead a little bit. And I don't know what it is. Normally releases like this do not catch my attention, I'm going to be completely honest. But there's something, I don't know, just really appropriate about it. It's not the right word, but it's one of those, it does kind of feel like you're traveling through the Russian countryside. And ambient records are notoriously hard to highlight, shall we say, from a listening point of view. These are really albums that you need to just sort of put on and let play out in the background. But you can hear the vocals here, right? I'm actually gonna hit my volume up just a little bit. Like, there's movement here. There is movement on the tracks, and like it's hard to remember specific moments from this very what's the term, like left field ambient music. But yeah, this is the track I think I was searching for in the beginning. And I do want to shout out to Bober in the chat that yes, we're gonna get to Элджей. It's just gonna take a little bit of time. You can actually kind of see him up here. He's kind of in the middle. So, but I think this track right here is a good example of that. Like, it's cinematic, it's ambient, there's movement, there's stillness to it, there's a lot of contrasting ideas, both in terms of adjectives you can use to describe it, but also just musically as well. So it's not necessarily beautiful, but at the same time, it's not dissonant and alienating. It's, I don't know, it's Russia, I guess, right? So yeah, the album there is Rusский, эмбиент, and the artist is море, кризисов. So that's the electronic release I have this week. It is relatively straightforward, and again, it's not like the sort of club bangers that we sometimes get when we talk about electronic music here, but it's still really good, all things considered, and it's a very pleasant listen. I've listened to it 2 or 3 times, once as just like a way to drift off to sleep, which I know I hate using that, but I find sometimes that like certain ambient or like really relaxed albums like this are just too relaxed and they just like, they're just white noise. But I find albums that have just enough movement in them that is kind of like stimulating at the same time, where you enter into this lucid dreaming state to some degree, before finally dipping under. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's a very nice album. It's good for doing some work and everything like that. So, but yeah, let's just move on to pop and indie. Again, we got 2 really good releases here. The first one up here is, I'm going to call this an album, even though it's only 6 tracks long. It does clock in at over 20 minutes, and 20 minutes is kind of my my dividing line. Like, if it's 6 tracks long, but it's over 20 minutes, I'm going to call it an album. If it's 6 tracks long, it's under 20 minutes, I'm going to call it an EP. That's just kind of how I roll. The artist is прекрасно знаешь, and the album is Меня, здесь уже нет. This is indie rock that isn't fully sure that it doesn't want to be bedroom dream pop, but it's this. To put it into context, at the early start of the year, in January to be sure, there was a group, Космос на потолке, which released an album, which was just like a little bit like the Breeders, but not quite. This is similar to that. It has that kind of like bedroom dream pop kind of atmosphere, but this is a lot of indie rock as well. It's a charming sort of bittersweet album where there's a lot of saccharine instrumentals and vocals, and then the lyrics tend to be a little bit more on the bleak and bitter side, a little bit more depressing. But yeah, this is just like a nice one all the way through. Let's just give it a listen. So definitely very much that kind of like bedroom pop, dream pop But gotta jump ahead here in just a second, but let's give the vocals a listen. Perhaps it's not on this track. Perhaps this track maybe does play out all the way through like that. So I got a little bit harder. There it is. Okay, it's at the very end. So like we shift gears towards the end. It starts out that very light and sweet and kind of granted lyrically it's not 100% like that. If you can dig into the lyrics, it's the first track's not as depressing or bleak, but anyway. First part is definitely a little bit more upbeat, but let's get into some of these other tracks too so you can hear what I'm talking about. So if you were to remove the backing synths or whatever that is going on back there, you would have a more straightforward indie rock / pop, post-punk sort of song here. So we have this back and forth. It's a very, again, it's a very pleasant album, all things considered. I would say, in terms of mood, I would peg this more as a late summer release, in the sense that it has the atmosphere of just like summer is still here, and the energy and the joy of summer, while at the same time understanding that time is coming to a close. So that's the kind of, if I had to peg it as to like seasonally where this would fit in, to me this feels like one of those albums that fits with like the end of high school, or like the end of at the end of some really, the end of summer is another, just like it makes sense for everyone, right? Like it's a little bit bittersweet. Like it's still great, it's still wonderful, it's still beautiful, but you know that the time is over, and that you go back to, I guess, like cruddy weather, being inside. I know some people like that, but so yeah, that is the short album Меня, здесь, нет, and the group is прекрасно знаешь. Just a nice little indie release there. Kind of a nice mix of sounds too, something a little bit different, unusual. Top pick of the week when we're talking about pop and indie, though, is going to go to this artist here, Lenta, and her album ОСТОРОЖНО, ХРУПКОЕ. So, yeah, honestly, as odd as it might seem, I did not miss out on the rise of Billie Eilish. I was there, like, as she was gaining fame, and I actually kind of followed along with it. And while her transformations and ongoing maturation as an artist are definitely interesting to follow as well and observe, it's kind of like watching Lana Del Rey evolve. Billie Eilish's debut album is probably going to be the one that will leave the longest lasting impact in that it spawned countless imitations and knockoffs. While this release right here, ОСТОРОЖНО ХРУПКОЕ, is almost certainly inspired by the sound of Billie Eilish's debut album, this is not that. It's not a knockoff. This is indie electro pop, but the main focus is on pop music. First and foremost, 100% this is a pop music album. It borrows from soul and funk as well. Really just kind of whatever sound it needs to. Even ignoring the lyrical content, which grapples with relationships and just the general shit that most of us encounter in the early years of adulthood, this album, honestly, from start to finish, is good. It's one of those albums that feels like an album, like the artist actually sat down and thought about sequencing and how the tracks fit together and how the general feel of the album goes, because it does start out a little bit more upbeat, and then as you move through the album and get closer towards the end, it becomes a little bit more subdued and not melancholic, but maybe reflective of everything. And yeah, honestly, with all of that, it's just great from start to finish. I don't want to hype it up too much, but this is probably, at this point in time, at the beginning of July, one of the best pop albums of the year that I've heard so far, like straight up pop albums. And I'm going to be completely honest, I don't know why more people aren't talking about this. Some people might say it's derivative, but I think, again, when you look at everything that is here, like this, if you only heard this, you would be forgiven if you're just like, yeah, it's just Billie Eilish knockoff. You know, it's got that. But it is catchy, isn't it? That bass, so sparse, but it's doing so much lifting on this track, and I'm all there for it. So, but. So you can hear this like kind of stepping back from the electro dance elements, which are pretty much ubiquitous across the first 4 or 5 tracks here. I mean, we are on the 5th track, but like this kind of marks the transition. Even though I do not have hearts for most of the second half, it's not because those tracks are not good, but because, again, they feel more appropriate in the context of the album as a whole. They're the types of tracks, like they're what we considered B-sides back in the day, right? So yeah, right, we get into the more fragile, more broken sound towards the end of the album, in the back half. I didn't even notice this the first time. I didn't really pay attention to the auto-tune, which, like, I'm normally not a huge fan of, but I guess if I didn't notice it the first time, then it probably isn't too much of an issue, is it? So yeah. But again, it's got a lot of Billie Eilish energy in the first half, and kind of in the second half as well, but like it's definitely doing its own thing. So. I still stand by what I say. I think this is ultimately going to be one of the better pop albums released here in Russia in 2025. Again, I don't know why there's not a lot of people talking. I don't know why there aren't a lot of people talking about this right now. But hey, those of you who see this, you will be in the know, I suppose. So the album is ОСТОРОЖНО, ХРУПКОЕ, and the artist is Lenta. And for those of you who don't know Russian, ОСТОРОЖНО, ХРУПКОЕ is like careful, fragile, basically, which again plays into the album artwork with the broken glass and a lot of the stuff in the album. So it's well thought out, really good album, definitely worth a listen. And that's it for pop and indie, and we are then already into the final two sections, rap and hip hop, and then we're gonna get into rock and metal. Rap and hip hop had kind of a good week. We got 5 releases here. We're gonna start out with Two Hug, or I don't know if it's Two Hug or maybe it's Thug. I don't know. The naming conventions are so out there. If you've been watching these streams, you know how I feel about Friendly Thug from Petersburg and all. And I hate coming back to Friendly and kind of digging up those bones, but all the hype around Friendly Thug and the St. Petersburg scene, how it's true and real and it's all about the streets. Okay, well, maybe that's true. I don't know. But Two Hug or Thug here, or however it wants to be called, has the same background. He's from St. Petersburg and all that. But on this EP, he shows that you can do the whole autobiographical songs highlighting the struggles and the dirty side of life on the edges of society while keeping it musically engaging. Friendly Thug, take notes for the love of God, right? Like, this is musically engaging, and it's basically along those same lines. Also employs a variety of rhythms and styles over the short course of these 6 tracks. If you're going to get excited about rap coming out of St. Petersburg, then I would say be more excited about artists like Two Hug or Thug. Again, not sure how he wants it pronounced. But yes, this EP, Rappers Never Die, this is, I think, a much better representative for St. Petersburg. But like, even though the delivery is still, at least here in the beginning, relatively level and monotone, there's just so much more going on here than with Friendly Thug. So and instrumentally speaking here too, it's just a lot more engaging. But yes, Bobr, we finally made it. We're here. We're coming close to the Элджей, the promised land. So, and again, this is only 6 tracks long, but you can see they are all around a minute and a half long. And this is going to be basically the same situation with the next release that we're talking about. I feel like in the pre-internet era, a release that was like 10 minutes long would have pissed people off to no degree, but nowadays it kind of feels fine. So, and again, when it's 6 tracks even if they are short, but if they all fit together well, and they're all good, then it doesn't really matter, does it? So yeah, again, there was just 3 different tracks there, and on all of those, his delivery and his rhyme scheme was different, which is a marked departure from other, shall we say, large name members of the St. Petersburg rap game. So that is To Hug, or again, Thug, maybe. I'm not entirely sure how he wants his name to be pronounced. But the EP there is Rappers Never Die, very easy to find. So regardless of how the name is pronounced, it's only 10 minutes too. Give it a listen. Really good stuff. Really enjoyable. Up next, we have, again, another one of these goddamn names. I don't know, D4P, DAP, maybe. I don't know. The EP here is Risk. And as the torrent of music and releases just kind of is always coming in, I'm bound to miss a few things here and there. And D4P, or DAP, this artist right here released an album in April that I was actually meaning to get around to. And it got buried in my playlist. That release was Trap Star. But I knew about this artist from his release from last year, which was 20. And I remember listening to his album 20 last year, which is like this combination of drill, trap music. He's out of Moscow, so I guess like for me, it's kind of like hometown, if you will, here in Russia. And when I stumbled onto his 20 album last year, I was just like, oh shit, like this is kind of my vibe right here. So when I saw that he'd put this EP out, I kind of just like bumped it to the top of my list. And honestly, it did. It lived up to expectations. Just like it was with Rappers Never Die, with that EP that we just listened to. This one's really short. It's only 7 tracks long. The average track is about a minute and a half long. So it is over before you even know it. But because the songs are so good, because they all flow together so well, you can just start it up again and let it play through. Yeah, I'm definitely more of a trap lover myself. But
Я ушел с угла, как Бекхэм, но бро влюблен там в рэкет. Мой Канада гусь, как схемы серые, да мне комфортно в этом. Она думает, то, что мы в фильме, меняю симки, делаю цифры. Айфон в авиарежиме, но я не брал себе плейн-тикет. Моя бич любит... Эй, Sweetie, walk on. После концерта со мной в отель. О, бэби, давай на мне, я хочу купить для бро Бенз. Но он сейчас в тюрьме, я вроде звезда, но при ко мне. Меняем сим-карты здесь, и она хочет со мной уикенд. Я дала не вспомнил на нее.
like, I think I spun this thing 3 times in a row when I was listening. Just because, again, like the first time it was over before I even realized it. And then the second time through, it was just like, okay, yeah. And it's not like all the sort of typical traditional trap beats that you would kind of expect. Like this one right here gets a little Eastern, if you will, but like... So again, like if you're not a huge fan of that kind of, we're just gonna call it the trap scene, you're probably not gonna like that. But if you do enjoy it, then hey, you got this right here. And honestly, again, it's like 10 minutes long, so realistically, you're not really investing a huge, it's not a huge time sink ultimately, so. Oh yeah, the EP there is Risk, the artist D4P, or perhaps he wants it to be pronounced as DAP. But yeah, again, really short EP, really enjoyable, and you can spin it a few times and then add it to your library or forget about it, however you want. But it is a good one. All right, now we're actually getting into album territory here with rap and hip hop, and we're coming up to the first one, which is Atelje, which I hate this because it's a French word that has been transcribed into Cyrillic into Russian, which is atelier. So I can't pronounce French words in general, and when French words get transcribed into Russian, then it's like I'm doubly boned on that one. So the artist is КАССЕТА, and I'll try the album. It's Ателье is the album name. That's about as good as it's going to get there. But the link is in the description down below, as are all of the links to all of the albums that I'm talking about today. So КАССЕТА is a producer / hip-hop artist, and he gained a little bit of hype, actually a decent amount of hype, I feel like, with last year's Воздух, Вода, Огонь. And we've got him kind of like roaring back on this album, which is basically a mixtape. There is a guest artist featured on every single track. It's a bit of a revolving door where КАССЕТА acts as the tailor, because atelier means tailor, right? It's the French word for a fitter, a tailor. So КАССЕТА is acting as the tailor on this mixtape or this album, where he is shaping the beats to the specific needs of each of the musical guests, which realistically does make the title here quite appropriate. It's a chance for КАССЕТА to kind of flex his production muscles and demonstrate how he can work in numerous genres of rap and electronic music. It is a grab bag. Kind of feels like it is, it kind of feels like there are a few viral TikTok songs buried on here, or at the very least, it's the type of album that is just kind of like a summer shuffle playlist. Like, you could just put this album on, play it all the way through. You could hit shuffle. It doesn't matter. All of these tracks are relatively brief, and they are all engaging in their own way. So we got a little bit more of the like old school hip-hop vibe here. And I mean, granted, they got черная экономика here, so that makes a little bit of sense. Since Элджей's coming up next, I suppose let's feature the track with Feduk. I feel like that would be appropriate, wouldn't it? So we go from that old school hip hop vibe, and we jump into this one, which definitely has a lot of the Euro electronic vibe as well.
Чтобы знали, где я. Каждый день в этом городе пьют вино. Справа налево скольжу языком. То, что в этой бумаге зовут тупиком. Закрыли окно, но я делаю вдох. Справа налево скольжу языком. То, что в этой бумаге зовут тупиком. И вдох на окно, бля, я делаю вдох. Дым влетает в мои легкие и начинает дэнсить. Сердце красное, как пресня. Подходи, мы можем взвесить. На часах твоя судьба, и ты уже реально бесишь. Мы отправляем все в поход. Я взялся новенький артерикс.
And then like we get into a more what is this, UK? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Like, all of these tracks have their own unique atmosphere. Like, they are all musically separate and different. And so listening to this feels, again, it feels like a mixtape. It's good. It's fun. It's just like again, relatively brief. There really isn't a single long release this week. I'm just gonna be completely honest. So, but it is musically all over the place, and that's kind of what makes it a blast. So yeah, I mean, is it a rap album? I guess because most of the featured artists are rappers in some form or another, although a lot of them aren't necessarily. Like Piotr Martic is not. Loud aren't really. Thomas Mraz, kind of. Lolita, definitely not. But whatever. It's in the rap release, and it's definitely a fun album. So yeah, that is КАССЕТА, and that is the album Ателье. And yes, now we finally get to it. We finally get to Элджей. So yes, this is Bober has been going off in the chat about this. We have Элджей here, and the album is Комплекс полноценности, or maybe Комплекс полноценности, if we want to get a little bit more. So Bober, obviously in the chat, knows who Элджей is 100%. So this is all going to be a bit of a rehash for him. But I'm assuming that a good number of people who might be watching this don't know who Элджей is. Элджей has been a fixture in the rap. I would call him a fixture of the Russian rap / pop scene for about a decade now. And while it was kind of his love of Japanese culture, Sayonara Boy, and the fact that he wears these all white contacts most of the time. I think he has irises in them now, but regardless, right? He has a very specific style, and I think that is what kind of put him, is what garnered cultural attention in the first place. It was his hit with Feduk, Розовое вино, back in 2017, which kind of launched him into the pop culture stratosphere. I'm not going to lie, Розовое вино for me is still, as a song, an encapsulation of the mood and atmosphere in Russia pre-COVID and pre-war. It's like when there are any conversations with regards to Russia before whatever, I always think of that song, Розовое вино, with Элджей and Feduk. To me, was just the biggest possible banger ever. And it was just it was such a dumb, stupid song. But anyway, so Элджей has been doing this for a while, long story short. And this album right here was released on Элджей's 31st birthday. And it's supposed to be an encapsulation of his work and his life as a whole. And honestly, I'm not going to sit here and wax poetically about this album, because it's just a good album. I'm not going to say it's fantastic. I'm not going to say it's the best album ever, that I'm losing my mind about it, but it is just a good album all the way through. It is, I'll put it like this. If you're not familiar with Элджей, this is a very good introduction to the artist. There are plenty of catchy pop rock songs here, with a lot of sing-along choruses. I'll just play it. When he gets in on the track Siberia, it's I'm from Siberia. There are all these dumb moments, dumb in a good way, where it's catchy. I'll just let it play out for a second. Yeah. Such a ridiculous hook, but I'm from Siberia. I love it. It's so dumb, but it's so effective. So I have no complaints about it whatsoever. So yeah, the album is full of this. There's a lot of sort of musical hooks as well. A lot of electronic stuff going as well, because that is kind of his fishka. Yeah, honestly, if there's one complaint I have with this entire album, it is so relatively minor. It's the GPT track, and it has the little lightning bolt next to it, which means it's super popular. And I don't know if that's because it's the Anikov feature, but the whole GPT thing feels like in a few years it's going to be a very dated artifact. But again, that's just like a rather innocuous criticism. Like, as a song, it's fine. I just like baby ask chat at chat GPT. Just like such a, I don't know. That's the only thing with this album. I'm just like, every time this track comes on, I'm just like, I don't know lyrically how I feel about this. To counter that out, though, I have to highlight the track Hangover, because holy shit, I was blown away by this. It samples just an incredibly underrated electroclash song by the group Fisher Spooner. The name of the original track is Emerge, and it came out in the year 2000. And that was kind of the track that got me into electronic amusement. It was a little backstory here, a little story time. We were in New York City for a school trip type thing, and walked into Virgin Records back in the day, like 2 stories, just like all the CDs everywhere, and they had this just like intense bass line pumping, just like do 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 do, and I was just like hooked immediately, and I could not get it out of there. And so when I heard this, which is a slight variation, to be fair, I like shocked. So the fact that he sampled this just like puts this like way the hell up there, and mad respect to Элджей for digging that up, or whoever might be producing the track in particular. All right, yeah, you know what? Yeah, we'll hit up Mac and Cheese. It is a good track. But like, this whole album, yeah, yeah, the Sandstorm track, of course. Yeah, right. Yeah. There are so many moments like this on this album where is this an homage to electronic music of years past? Is it a reinterpretation? I don't know, it doesn't matter. It's just like Mac and Cheese, it's comfort food in its own way.
Alright, you used to think that I would never make it. Alright, I got a show in London, getting wasted all night. I used to dream about this shit, don't make it.
So, yeah, Bobor, thank you. I had forgotten about the Mac and Cheese. I gotta highlight the track with 18 though as well, because this is one of those that again feels like a summer style hit as well, because 18 has been producing just like a slew of really good summer hits over the last few years.
Я чувствую, когда ты танцуешь классно так. И если мы в пути, мы не слышим голоса. Но эта ночь нежна, и мы можем дышать. Искусственным дыханием ты мой земной шар. Я чувствую, когда...
So yeah, is this a rap album? Is this a pop album? I mean, I'm gonna call it a rap album. Let's just be real. But again, as I've had this discussion many, many times already over the course of the year, rap has expanded and started to bleed into so many other genres at this point in time that it's not the monolith that it once was in terms of like one specific sound that you can identify. And that's obviously good, because you get releases like this. And to be fair, Элджей has been doing this, like I said, for years now. But yeah, so really good album, really fun album. It's a little bit like, not exactly, but similar to Quoque, which is an artist I have talked about twice so far this year, with his electronic album in the first quarter and his Qtopia last quarter, where it is an artist that feels like they're more of an electronic style producer, but they do the rap thing with it as well, and it works out really well. Элджей is obviously definitely more of a rapper than Quoque, but it has kind of that same energy. So again, really good album, really enjoyable, perfectly timed for the summer, because this does feel like a summer album 100%. It's got the energy, it's got the dance vibes, it's got the kind of catchy hooks. So yeah. And if you're not familiar with Элджей, then this is, I think, again, like I said before, a perfect introduction to the artist. So again, the artist there is Элджей, and the album is Комплекс полноценности. I'm not going to try to translate that to just how it goes. So yes. And Bobr, you'll have to forgive me here, but this is not my top pick for rap album of the week, because even though this is a really good album, and even though this is an album that I think is going to hold up well and is going to be really fun to come back to, I do think that there is a more interesting album in the rap category this week, because it's not, like I mentioned before, rap has kind of expanded, and it's bled into other genres, and other genres have bled into rap music, and now we have just a mishmash of everything. And so we're going to talk, my top pick for rap albums this week, even though it does say alternative in Russian as the genre, is Rudolf Strausov, and the album is ЗЕМЛЯНИКА. This is an album, obviously speaking. First of all, love the PS1 graphics here. So I do want to point out there are lots of artists who this month and last month have been following up really strong releases from last year with equally, if not better, releases now. And Rudolf here is no exception. Last year, Rudolf Strausov released Sasha, which was a rap album that leaned heavily into indie music in all senses of the word indie. And then here on ЗЕМЛЯНИКА, we have, it's kind of the opposite, where it's an indie album in all senses of that word, which leans into hip-hop territory. But that's, again, an oversimplification, because there are heavy streaks of noise rock and electronic music, the noisy type like the Bloody Beetroots, for example. I've seen people mention Nine Inch Nails and JPEG Mafia when discussing this album. I would even go as far as to say that you could probably talk about Death Grips or Death from Above 1978. Is it 1978 or 1979? I can't remember. It's been so long. Anyway, despite the heavy indie everything atmosphere musically, this is still an underground rap release. And it's just like a really great and creative one at that. And if me kind of talking about indie this and noise rock that was enough to make you kind of question whether or not this is rap album, this final release, this final track, which is 9 minutes, cements this album as a rap release. In it, Rudolf, which is not the artist's real name, but I was too lazy to actually dig through Kontakte to find it. Rudolf goes into a super detailed view of life in a typical Russian apartment block on na rajonie, kind of like in the region, family life, the emotions, all the ups and downs connected to it. I've seen other rap artists dedicate entire albums to attempting to do this exact same thing and failing in that. And so honestly, like this final track, Biografia, from a storytelling point of view, in my opinion, is probably one of the best of the year so far. But like, let's just get into it so you can hear musically what this sounds like. It is all over the place, but that's kind of what makes it, again, that's kind of why I'm putting it here.
Хватает небо, таблетки, сырая свалили дышит. Я бреду марионеткой по дорогам, перекресткам, светофоры надо мной. Я живу как в анекдоте и ебашу на метро.
Lyrically too, on this album, there is a level of vulgarity, obviously, to be expected. But there's a level of poeticism in it as well too, if you want to get into the lyrics and dig through them and parse everything. And the lyrical content and the musical accompaniment mesh together so well. But
я кричу на вилку, лапшу из доширака, и никто не повторит мои улыбки, сука, фото. Я рисую свои дни, ну пуста всегда бумага, все буквально, все буквально. Оловянные солдатики ходят на работу, ползают недели и бедная суббота. Дожидается меня, выйду из окопа, все буквально, все буквально, все буквально.
in my opinion, one of the most important things in any genre, whether it be connected to music or film or books or games or anything connected to genre. Genre in and of itself is inherently formulaic. So when you have artists or creators or whatever they happen to be in their various artistic divisions, when they start to screw with the tried and true rules of a genre, that's when you get something good, something interesting, something special. And we've seen that happen, right? I feel like right now in rap in general, we're kind of going through a major period, which probably happened with rock and metal like 30 or 40 years ago. And which realistically happens from time to time in any music genre. But yeah, so for me, anything that is prioritizing an experimental nature, and if they're able to do it in a way that is musically engaging, and for me, that's like shooting way to the top of the list, right? As much as I love a good nostalgia trip, as much as I love artists who do the same thing over and over again, but do it very, very well, I still love pushing that envelope, so. And Rudolf Strausov's album last year, Sasha, was also really, really good.
ночи и засветит солнце берега. Хочется.
I'll give you one taste of this final track, which is just 9 minutes of him rapping about life.
Коридор в окошке. Настанет утро, все сценарии позабыли. Почудится спектакль, жили-были. Каждый день одно и то же, напишите на могиле. Жили-были.
This is a track that you can really only appreciate if you understand Russian, so I'm just going to throw that out there right now. So
Соседа снова во дворе избили. Дедушка приносит нам по скидочке сырки. А в коридоре домик из проколотой фольги. А почему?
like it's like if you can understand the lyrics, it's such a colorful, it's like you're walking down the staircase of like of an old HRUPKOEE building, and like all of the neighbors are popping out with all of their like odd characteristics. So yeah, I'm gonna kind of put that on hold because I still got 3 albums to get to. But yes, for rap and hip hop, my top pick of the week, despite how good Элджей is. So Bobr, don't want to step on your toes there. Элджей does have a very good album, but for me, my top pick of the week is ЗЕМЛЯНИКА by Rudolf Strausov. But we're not done. We're not done at all. We're going to move on to rock and metal, which is basically just metal this week, let's be real. But, you know, that's kind of how it is a lot of the weeks. So let's talk about the Зависимость EP by Painfinder. From the title track opener, this group out of Penza just does not hold back in the least. This 5-track EP is a whirlwind of metal subgenres. We got deathcore, mathcore. There are hints of sludge metal. There's hints of new metal. But the core of everything is fast underground hardcore. This is the second EP from the group. Their first was last year. Also, they are really obsessed with motocross. Like, I think the lead singer performs in a motocross helmet, which I think is kind of insane. But yeah, the speed, the aggression, the style is fresh enough that I would really love to hear a full length from these guys. So I'm just going to give you a taste. We are in metal territory now, so just forewarned. This feels a little bit like Slipknot, Iowa territory. I skipped over the little mathcore part right there, but got the little math metal riffage. And again, I know that for a lot of people, this is probably going to sound like just chaotic, but the fact that they're able to mix and throw a bunch of these things together and do it as quickly as they're doing it and have it not sound like complete garbage, again, you have an ear for this stuff, is impressive. So you know, Russians, my bad, I guess. So yeah, your standard hardcore beatdown after, you know, a little kind of like moment to clear the pit up, but yeah, again, it's hardcore, but there are a lot of elements thrown in there. It is, again, it's very experimental. They're trying something different, and so kind of like hats off to that. That is the Зависимость EP by Painfinder out of Penza. Very good, interesting short release there. Again, and a dude who, if he's performing in the metal or the motocross helmet all the time, then Jesus Christ, I don't know what's wrong with him. But, okay. Next up, we have a release by KSB Music, and the album is KSB Music for Genesis Воскресенье. It's just a really horrible, chaotic titling thing there. But anyway, so while I loved them in high school, groups like the Bloodhound Gang and Mindless Self-Indulgence have kind of aged poorly, right? For various reasons, not least of which is the lyrical content. But that doesn't mean I don't listen to those groups anymore. It's just that when I do, the lyrics do kind of come across a bit cringe, sometimes wildly inappropriate even. However, if I kind of mentally dumb myself down to my teenage version of myself, then I still love the idiocy of it all, right? The wildly inappropriate level, the wild inappropriateness of the lyrics, especially when they're not fully serious, right? Sometimes it's quite tongue-in-cheek. And even if it is halfway serious, it's just like kind of whatever. It's, yeah. KSB is kind of another one of those bands. There are a lot of lyrics. In fact, their lyrics in general are full of non-politically correct phrasing, a lot of vulgarity, plenty of sex, fair amount of violence, and a absolute shit ton of Dota references. These guys love Dota more than I thought it was possible for like a rock group to love Dota. But yeah, there's more Dota than you can. I like had to go online and dig into Dota explanations in order to understand what the hell they were even talking about. So that's the thing. And if you don't know what Dota is, then like I guess you have to Google that as well. But yeah, I have to point out Roskomnadzor, which is the Russian censorship organization. Even though it's like the FCC, it's, let's just be real, it's a Russian censorship organization at this point in time. Roskomnadzor actually banned some of the songs from this group in the past, which I hate that shit. So I definitely have to give the group a shout out here, because if you're making music that is pissing off Roskomnadzor, then like keep up the good work. I guess freedom of expression, freedom of speech, all that good stuff. Like as long as you're not like actively calling for the violent extermination of whole groups of people, kind of fuck off type of situation. But yeah, musically, especially if you don't understand Russian, this is just going to sound like a modern take on Russian rock, Russian punk rock. But yeah, and honestly, the vocals do work in the context of some of the songs. Like it's a little bit nasally, it's a little bit high pitched, could be a little bit annoying at times, but it works. So I kind of So again, right? If you're just here musically, have a good time. If you can make out the lyrics, that's kind of up to you, right? Whether or not this is for you or not. But I was honestly a little turned off at first, but I think it's just like the shock value of a lot of it. So musically, very fun, very good. And I do feel like the references to mindless self-indulgence and Bloodhound Gang are absolutely appropriate here. This is a song about Dota.
Универсальный герой, совмещающий ближний бой и слюнявую куньку. Также он способен перевоплотиться в саппорта или действовать между линиями. Чаще всего используются пидорасами.
There's that mix of that kind of like electronic elements with the punk, with just like the general kind of hard rock sound. So all right, so yeah, that is the group KSB Music, and the album is KSB Music 4 Кризисов Воскресенья. Yeah, good album, really fun, kind of dumb, but that's okay, right? You get that from time to time. And that brings us to my top pick of the week, and holy shit, this is an album. But a lot of really good albums this week. I'm not gonna lie, there are a lot of albums here that I know this is the third week of the third quarter, and that realistically there's like another 9 of them ahead. More than 9, give or take 9. I think it's been 13, so it's 26. Okay, so there's another 10 weeks left to this quarter. Regardless, I kind of feel like a lot of the albums that we've talked about today are ones that will kind of like be top albums of this period of time. And then we get this album, Mayhem Punk Rap by Cardio Killer. Yes, they look like Jay and Silent Bob. Yes, I kind of think that's the point, and that's really all secondary, realistically. While there have been a lot of great rock and metal releases this year, it's been a long time since I've heard something that I'm sure is just going to be like at the top of the rock and metal release list. Honestly, I think at this point in time, it's still the album Oven by Zlo, which came out on the 1st of January. Like the first album I talked about, the first week type of thing. This now is a contender to potentially dethrone that album as the best rock and metal album of the year. So the duo from Nizhny Novgorod here have kind of done it. And sure, maybe I'm a sucker for what now surely qualifies as a nostalgic sound, but this is a mix of punk, rap, and nu metal, and it sounds like the energetic, eclectic mix of tracks that we would have made in high school when CD burners and Napster and LimeWire first allowed people the ability to kind of make mixtapes on CDs, right? It feels like just the early 2000s, late 1990s, early 2000s, when you're slapping all of the like really cool new rock and metal tracks onto an album, and like they don't necessarily fit together, but they're just like so cool, and it just like whatever, man, it's just like a fucking ripping time. So much of this is familiar. There are so many references to the metal scene from the turn of the millennium, both directly in the lyrics. They mention Back to the Primitive, Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat. I'll just pull up the lyrics for Holiday. They mention Deftones, Korn. God damn it. Somebody else I can't think of right now off the top of my head. And even the riffs and intonations with singing remind you of other songs that you have heard. System of a Down, there is, at the end of one of the songs, the way the lyrics are delivered are the exact same as Serge from System of a Down. Like with his like the way he kind of ends songs at times. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of the riffs and melodies on this album are repurposed from releases from about 25 years ago, but it's all done so deftly that it feels like the rock metal equivalent of a girl talk album, where I'm listening to it, I'm enjoying the music as a product, and then I kind of recognize some long forgotten song that then floats to the surface of my memory, like the Proustian moment from The Restaurant Critic, at the end of Ratatouille, right? That moment at the end of Ratatouille when he's sitting down, he takes that first bite and just like a Proustian novel, this memory from deep, deep long ago comes floating back to the surface and kind of explodes in the front of your frontal cortex, and you're just like, holy shit, like I had totally forgotten about that. That's musically what this does for people who were into rock and metal about 25 years ago, give or take. And that's probably the best analogy I can make. It's just like the Ratatouille scene. It's an album that if you experience the rock and metal scene from around the year 2000, it's going to unlock all sorts of musical memories. But it's going to also sound fresh and engaging. And if you missed that music scene the first time around here, then it's still just like a kick-ass album. So I'm going to stop yapping and just kind of get into it. I got to open the lyrics so I can show you them. System of a Down. 100%. Korn was the other one. Back to School is Deftones. Freaky na Привязки. Korn, Freak Unleashed. Act a Fool is Ludicrous. Back to the Primitive, Soulfly.
Добро пожаловать в мой киносериал. Вдруг кто не знает, Lucky это сериал. Держу пари, ты справишься, тебе должна понравиться игра, где каждый мув саблиминал. Back to school, фики на привязи, act a fool. Back to the primitive, я дважды нажимаю play, досчитай до одного и будет holiday.
So again, like in the lyrics, they are just straight up referencing so many things. And it's not the only one. Again, I swear to God, I've heard this riff before. I cannot, like, all of these CDs, ones that I had purchased, ones that I had burned during high school, and then into university. I know this riff is there somewhere, but holy shit, that's like 200-300 different albums. So, it's like deja vu, this whole album is. I also feel like I need to mention, these guys released an album last year, which, while not as good as this album, was also really, really good. When I saw they had released another album, I was not expecting it to be this. Yeah, again, this. I swear to God, I know that guitar riff from somewhere. Again. Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat, for those of you who do not know, was Slipknot's first album before they were signed to a major record label. It was when they were still an independent group out of Des Moines, Iowa. The fact that they're referencing that.
извиняюсь. Пусть все горит, все горит, все горит. Я тоже тут, не боюсь, не боюсь, не боюсь. Нас не найдут. Окей, если ты захочешь, значит пусть все горит, все горит, все горит, все.
I love this album. No lie. And it's just like, the more you go through the lyrics, right, you can see it, suck my kiss. This is ultimately a love letter to rock and metal from 25, theoretically, plus years ago, but realistically 25 years ago. Oh yeah, of course, and of course they are ripping off the Get Lucky thing a little bit. All right, I'm gonna highlight two more. Again, that melody, I do not know what song it's from, but I know 100% it exists somewhere else. And then we go into like the rap rock a la Head PE. I don't. Again, I'm not sure what Vosum or 831 is, but yeah, again, it's just like, it's an album of Easter eggs at the same time, which, for someone who loves Easter eggs and trying to like decode everything, again, it's like a girl talk album. When you're listening to it, you're like, where is that guitar line from? Where is that vocal sample from? It's a puzzle of an album for people who love metal and rock music, especially, again, people my age. And then this is the one which is very System of a Down, but like, I have to highlight it because the end of this song, the very end, is like ripped straight out of Serge Tanaka's playbook. Jump ahead a bit. Jumps at the very end. Listen to the like. Stop, no, 3. That's it. That's Surge. That's 100% Surge, and it's all of those little things together. I love this album to no end. Every time listening to it, every time looking at the music or at the lyrics, I feel like I'm digging up something new. So this is an absolute treat of an album. Honestly, this album came out, I had it in the playlist on the first week of the new quarter. The first week when I started talking about July releases. It's just, like I said, after Cardio Killer's release from last year, I knew it was going to be good and entertaining. I just did not think it was going to be like this. So I have been sitting on this one for a while, and I'm really glad I did not let it get buried beneath everything else, because this is a hell of an album, and I'm sure I'm going to be talking about this and thinking about this further into the year. And I'm sure when we get around to the end of the year, this is going to be in the discussion as well. So that is the album Mayhem Punk Rap. The artist is Cardio Killer, and yeah, just a fantastic album. kind of want to listen to it again right now, but I can't do that. I need to finish up the stream. So that is what I'm going to do. But yeah, that's it. There are actually, I think, maybe 2 other albums that I had listened to once or twice that I was actually going to make some notes about, but I just didn't have time to sit down and re-listen and do it. So I've already got a little bit of a start for next week. I haven't looked at new releases for the last 2 days, but I'm kind of interested now. What is... I feel like this week right here, the one that we're just talking about right now, I feel like I kind of ran through most of the big ones that I had left in my playlist. So I might have exhausted the majority of good releases that are left. Yeah, it's kind of what it feels like. We'll have to see. Tomorrow's Friday, so in about 40 minutes here, when it hits midnight here in Moscow, there will be a new batch of releases which kind of comes out, but it is possible that I did just kind of blow the entirety of the good releases for July on 1 week. But hey, you know what? That's not my problem. That's the release schedule's problem. So I had a lot of fun this week. I had a blast. This was a week where I actually really enjoyed listening to music, and I did not feel like I should be re-listening to old albums to kind of reevaluate things. I was just having a good time listening to it, and I honestly think I'm going to go out on the bicycle tomorrow. It's going to be the first day that's not 90 plus degrees Fahrenheit, 30 plus degrees Celsius. There's not supposed to be any rain. It's supposed to be kind of that nice happy medium. So that'll be another opportunity for me to just kind of get out there in the zone and go check out some new tunes. But yeah, I hope you found something new and fun and interesting to listen to. Let's be real. Only 11 albums. I realized that the last few weeks versus some of the weeks in the past, the number of albums have kind of dropped off. I don't know if that's just because I'm getting a little bit more picky. Doing this for as long as I have, albums really have to start to make an impact, and it's just I don't have the patience for just the mid nonsense that fills up most of the monthly playlists. Or if it's just the situation where there are just fewer releases in July. I think that might be the case, as odd as it might sound. Everyone's on holiday. So, again, you would think that would be the perfect time to release a bunch of really cool pop albums or rap albums where there's really summer anthems, kind of like Big Baby Tape and Arne did last year. Supersonic. For anyone who knows that song, that is the absolute summer banger of a song. And I mentioned with Элджей and Feduk, there was Розовое вино. I think on that same level is Supersonic by Big Baby Tape and Arne. And I think you get a song like that once every 5 years here in Russia is what it feels like. So we're going to have to wait a while for that one. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling right now. Yeah, I'll be back next week, 10 p.m. Moscow time, to do more of the music. I have actually, and this is going to sound incredibly dumb and almost absurdly delayed, but I do actually have everything for the best albums of the first quarter put together. I just it's just editing. I hate editing, so... But hey, that's why you tune into the streams, so that you don't have to wait for me to actually put everything together. You can just see the flow of albums every single week and then pick out the ones for yourself. You don't have to get the recap. So you're getting it straight from the source, as you will. But yeah, I'll be back next Thursday as usual, 10 p.m. I will be back on Saturday and then next Wednesday as well at 9 p.m. to talk about the Russian news. Obviously, this next Sunday, I'm going to be talking about all of the new fun things coming with regards to internet here in Russia, the new laws that were passed. But yeah, tune in on Sunday. You can hear all about that then. So until then, I'm gonna wrap it up here. Y'all have a good evening, good afternoon, whatever time of the day it is. I will see you when I see you. And until then, you all take care of yourselves. Yeah, I guess for me, that's пока-пока. I'm gonna hit the end stream button now because there's usually a slight delay.